Hola, ¿cómo están? Welcome to this time's building guide featuring Yelan. In this video, we'll talk about her info, talents, artifacts, weapons, tips and tricks, and some gameplay. Yelan is a mysterious person who claims to work for the Ministry of Civil Affairs, but is a non-entity on the Ministry of Civil Affairs list. Her birthday is on April 20th, and this is her name card, Fro. Unlocked as a reward for reaching friendship level 10 with Yelan, and her signature dish name is the Do-Dipped Shrimp. Starting with her basic attacks, Yelan performs up to 4 shots with a bow. Her charge attack is just as any other bow wielder, dealing hybrid damage. But Yelan has a second charge instance. After being 5 seconds out of combat, her next aim shot will have 80% decreased charge time and shoot a medium-sized AoE arrow that deals hydra damage based on Yelan's max HP. Her elemental skill, Lingering Lifeline, has 2 modes. You can tap or hold, which will let you either just advance a short distance fast or enter in a running stage, marking enemies on her path. After that, she'll deal damage to all marked enemies based on her max HP and has a chance of recovering the cooldown of her fast aim shot. Her elemental burst, Depth Clarion dice, is where she focuses as a no-fuel sub-DPS. She will first deal AoE hydra damage and activates Exquisite Throw, which basically summons a dice that follows the character, and every time that the active character uses a normal attack, or if Yelan elemental skill deals damage to an enemy, launches 3 coordinated attacks. Each one of them deals hydra damage based on Yelan's max HP. Her first passive talent, Turn Control, gives her an HP boost based on the number of different elemental types in the team. This is almost irrelevant, but useful anyway. Second passive, Adapt with Ease, is actually really great. When you cast your elemental burst, the active character will deal increased damage starting from 1%, but increasing over time up to 50%. This will be reset each time the ultimate finishes and is cast again. And lastly, her Exploration passive, Necessary Calculation, will increase 25% of the rewards of Legion Expedition going for 20 hours. As Yelan focuses no field damage, there are not plenty of tricks. But anyway, first, when her skill tangles multiple small enemies, they will all be pulled into Yelan's direction slightly. You can use this as some crowd control, but have in mind that bigger enemies won't get pulled and will just take damage. As for a fast rotation, you can use her elemental skill, and just as it finishes, use her elemental burst, as she will be able to get all those particles just in time and swap into your next character as fast as possible. This also applies to C1, Sacrificial, and Favonius both, meaning that she will be able to trigger both uses and catching twice the amount of particles in the same time window. Yelan is really fast in her elemental skill, making her quite good in Exploration too. And if you have a C1, you'll have 100% uptime running with both the skill and the stamina. And finally, you can use Yelan's fast charged aim shot to apply fast hydra in a medium-sized AoE. With Yelan, you'll want to maximize her elemental burst, and her elemental skill if you want some extra damage. And lastly, her basic attacks are not needed unless if she is 6-6, but I'll leave that for the Constellation section. Emblem of Severed Fate is the best artifact set for Yelan. She makes good use of all the effects, improving her burst damage up to 75%. With more Constellations as a main DPS, Yelan makes more use of the 2-piece side effect from Heart of the Depth and Tenacity of the Millelite. If you don't have yet a good 4-piece set of Emblem, you can also use a mix of 2 pieces of different sets that give energy recharge, HP percentage, Hydra damage bonus, elemental burst damage boost. As for the main stats, look for HP percentage or energy recharge on Sands, Hydra damage goblet, and crit rate or crit damage circlet. As for substats, look for crit rate and crit damage, then energy recharge, and finally HP percentage. Yelan's desired stats for Little Lady are 30,000 HP or more. In this case, attack is irrelevant since she scales mostly out of HP. As for a crit rate and crit damage ratio, you'll want your crit damage to double your crit rate, being for example 60 crit rate and 120 crit damage. Her energy recharge depends on your team and weapon. As a solo Hydra in a team, aim for 180 to 200 energy recharge, and you can lower that if you are running double Hydra, have C1 or have Favonius. Yelan has a wide range of weapons to choose from, starting with 5-star bows with her signature weapon and her best in slot, Aqua Simulacra, followed by the LG for the end, then the Polar Star, and finally the Skyward Harp is not the best, but it's good. As for the 4-star bows, her best will be the Stringless, then the Favonius followed by Sacrificial, but in this case have in mind that Sacrificial has a bit lower energy recharge substat, so you might have to balance that with other stats. You can anyway use any bow that has crit stats or energy recharge since Yelan will make great use of them, but avoid attack percentage. Moving up to the Constellations, they will be divided into Comfort and Damage. Yelan works just fine at C0, but there are some Constellations that are worth considering. C1 is Comfort. It gives Yelan another use of her elemental skill, and this doubles the amount of particles generated and reduces the amount of energy recharge needed. Also, for exploration, it allows you to constantly run with both skills and stamina, without running out of any of them. C2 is Damage and Comfort. When you use your elemental burst, it shoots another arrow to an enemy, improving her damage and her hydro application. C3, just as usual, levels up your elemental burst in 3 levels. C4 is Damage and kind of Comfort. It increases all of your team's max HP for some time, based on the number of enemies tangled with your elemental skill. C5, again, just as usual, levels up your elemental skill in 3 levels. C6 is Damage. When Yelan uses her elemental burst, she will enter the Mastermind state. In this state, the next 5 basic attacks that Yelan uses will shoot the fast arrow from her charged attack, dealing 156% of its original damage. If you're all out for Constellations, I will highly recommend C1, then C2 or C3. If you really want a main DPS Yelan, C6. As for Yelan teams, she has a wide range where to choose from. For Vaporize, you'll need a Pyro main DPS, a Shielder or a Healer, and a Damage Buffer or another sub DPS. For Electrocharged, you'll need a Electro main or sub DPS, an Anemo support, and a Shielder or a Healer. For National Team Comps, you'll only need Xiangling, Bennett, and any other main DPS. And lastly, as for Dendro teams, there's Bloom, Super Bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Borgian. For Bloom, look for more Hydro and Dendro units. having in mind a healer or a shielder. And for Super Bloom, you only have to replace one unit with Nilo. For Hyper Bloom, balance Dendro and Electro into main DPS and supports. For Borgen, you'll want Choma or Bennett, then a Dendro player and a shielder or a healer. Yelan can fit in some freeze teams, as long as basic attacks are used from the main DPS, such as Ayaka or Kaeya. My personal favorite is Hu Tao Double Hydra, where everyone makes use of the 2 Hydro Elemental Resonance, increasing everyone's max HP and applying plenty of Hydra. Yelan has a high utility value. She scales with HP while being a Hydro driver to enable strong reactions. She's good for open world exploration, bringing ease and comfort. And she has plenty of incomes to choose. Yelan's elemental burst energy cost is high, messing with her energy recharge needs. She is a limited 5-star, and while more and more characters are released, the amount of time between every rerun can be long, and her Hydro application can be inconsistent with some characters. In conclusion, Yelan is a must-have for everyone. But it's not necessary at all, since there is a 4-star version already. She has a lot of damage and boosts your main DPS. She's got a lot of team options and is still being useful in exploration as well. But again, and as always, pull for whoever you like, and no character is useless in this kind of game, where you can build them personally. If you are pulling for Yelan, I hope that you get her soon, and that this guide was useful for you. And if not, what other character would you like to see? Let me know in the comments. Now, thank you, and que les vaya bien. Hasta luego.